The storm hit harder than any before. Blake Morgan stood by the window of the small outpost, watching as the wind screamed across the frozen wasteland. Snow flew sideways, blinding and angry. The temperature had dropped below -60. No one, in their right mind, would step outside. But something strange was happening. Inside the radio room, the monitors flickered. A low hum filled the air, soft at first, then louder. Blake, a low-ranked technician assigned to maintenance, was alone during night shift. The others were asleep or ignoring the warnings. He leaned over the console and pressed his headset tighter, against his ears. At first, it sounded like static, just noise, then a voice. Blake. He froze. No one was supposed to be out there. The storm made communication impossible, even from nearby stations. Yet, the voice came again, soft, but clear. Blake, come. He pulled off the headset and stared at it. His heart pounded in his chest. Was this some kind of joke? A prank from the command tower? But no one used his name like that. Not in that tone. Blake's fingers trembled as he tried to replay the audio. But now it was gone. Just static. The main system registered no messages, no logs, nothing. He opened the main channel. Base command, this is Outpost Vega. I received something, a signal. It said my name. No response. Base command, please confirm. Is anyone sending? The line went dead. The storm outside roared louder, as if it was warning him. He knew the rules. No one left the outpost during Black Level storms. But Blake couldn't ignore it. Something deep inside told him this wasn't an accident. This wasn't a random sound. He grabbed his snow gear, emergency beacon, and thermal visor. As he stepped into the airlock, the cold seemed to bite through the steel walls. The wind hit him like a wall of knives. Blake lowered his head and trudged forward, following the weak signal source on his wrist device. It was faint, barely traceable, but it was there. A blinking point far north, toward the frozen peaks. His boots crunched into deep layers of snow. The terrain became steeper, the storm louder, but the signal grew stronger. He walked for over an hour until the world ahead changed. Through the white blur, he saw it. Something massive lay broken on the mountainside. Metal, twisted, dark shapes, half buried under snow. A ship, but not like any Earth ship. It was longer, sleeker, split in two like it had been torn from the inside. Blake stepped closer. The snow around it had melted in a strange circle, steam rising from the ground like breath from a beast. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the side, of the hull like they were alive. He pulled out his scanner. It beeped once, then sparked out .dead. He knew this was wrong. This ship didn't crash recently. It looked ancient, but not broken. It looked waiting. As he touched the outer hull, a pulse ran through his body. A soft vibration hummed in the air, and the ship's side opened with a hiss. A doorway, lit, inviting. He swallowed hard and stepped inside. The air was warm, dry, silent. No bodies, no signs of life. Just long halls with smooth, silver walls, and a glowing path beneath his boots. Then he reached the chamber. In the center was a console round, floating slightly above the ground. It shimmered with symbols, unreadable yet oddly familiar. As he stepped closer, the console lit up. A word formed on its surface. Blake Morgan. He staggered back. The console pulsed again. A blue light scanned his face, then projected a message above it. A voice, deep, calm, spoke. He has arrived. The cycle continues. Begin transmission. A burst of data hit the room like a wave. Light danced around him. Strange symbols filled the walls. The ground trembled. Then silence. The light faded. The console went dark. And Blake was left standing in the middle of the wrecked ship, heart racing, breath short. He turned to run, but the doorway was already closing. Just before it sealed, he saw something moving in the storm outside. A figure. Watching. Not human. Blake stumbled backward as the door behind him sealed shut. The hum in the air faded, and the ship grew quiet against too quiet. Only the sound of his heavy breathing filled the chamber now. The message had spoken his full name, not a call sign, not a coincidence. It knew who he was. He reached for his wrist device, but it was dead frozen from the storm or blocked by the strange energy inside the ship. He had no signal, no comms and no backup, and the glowing console in front of him was still. The chamber curved around him like a metal cocoon. Lines of light pulsed softly in the walls, as if alive breathing. He stepped forward again, waving his hand over the console, hoping it would respond. Nothing. Come on, Blake whispered. Say something. A soft click echoed behind him. He spun around, expecting danger. Instead, a small panel in the wall slid open, revealing a narrow tunnel lined with glowing lines. The air from it was warmer, almost inviting. He didn't know why, but his body moved forward without thinking. The tunnel sloped down, deeper into the mountain. As he walked, his mind flashed back to the message. He has arrived. The cycle continues. What? Cycle? Why him? He was just an engineer stationed in the outer colonies because he wasn't important enough for anything better. His parents were gone, no family, no records of any military or classified background, and yet this ship called him. The tunnel ended at a round room. A glass chamber stood in the middle, and inside was a glowing cube, floating inches above. A pedestal, strange markings circled it in the air, spinning slowly. As Blake stepped closer, the cube suddenly stopped, spinning. It turned to face him. And then, identity match, DNA sequence confirmed. Welcome, Blake Morgan. The voice was no longer cold. It sounded human, almost kind. Blake's heart thud dead. He placed his hand on the glass. It melted away instantly, like mist. The cube hovered toward him and rested softly in his palm. It was warm. Do you remember? The voice asked. Blake blinked. Remember what? But instead of words, he saw images, flashes, a child. A lab needles, a hand reaching out, a planet burning. Then darkness. He dropped the cube. It hovered in place. What was that? The beginning, the voice said. The others will come soon. Blake stepped back, overwhelmed. What? Others? What is this place? The last test site. The crash was staged. The signal was designed only for you. But why me? I'm not special. The cube pulsed again. You were modified at birth. Your DNA carries keys lost to your people long ago. You were hidden, placed where no one would look. Until now. Blake couldn't breathe. The ground beneath him suddenly felt unreal. I'm not some chosen one, he whispered. I fix water filters. I carry tools. I'm nobody. No, the voice said. You are a door. And now, others will try to close it. The room began to shake. Alarms blared through the ship in a language he couldn't understand. The walls turned red. Blake grabbed the cube and ran back toward the tunnel. As he reached the main chamber, he heard a distant hum. Growing louder, looked up through a small break in the ceiling, and his heart dropped. A ship, not human. A sleek, black vessel cutting through the storm like a blade. It hovered above the wreck like a hunter returning for its prey. Blake had to move. He searched for a second exit and found another hatch just as the enemy ship landed outside. He squeezed through a narrow maintenance shaft and crawled into the freezing wind, clutching the cube close to his chest. Snow whipped across his visor, and static returned to his headset. The signal was still jammed, but now, he wasn't sure he wanted to call for help. Not yet. He reached a ridge and looked back at the wreck. 3 tall figures stepped out of the alien ship, cloaked in armor, their eyes glowing faintly. They weren't here to rescue, they were here too. Silence. Blake turned and began moving, slower now, cold, gnawing at his joints. But he kept the cube close, because for the first time in his life, something needed him, and that meant he couldn't die yet. The message for one snow burned his skin through the layers of fabric. Blake kept moving, each step harder than the last. His breath fogged up his visor. The cube in his hand pulsed faintly, almost like it was alive. He didn't know where he was going, only that he couldn't stop now. Behind him, he heard the low hum of the alien ship. It hadn't taken off. That meant they were still searching. He dropped into a shallow ice trench and pressed his body against the frozen wall. His heart thumped in his ears. Above, black figures moved silently through the storm. They were tall, graceful, and unnatural, not built like humans. Their glowing eyes cut through the white haze, scanning the terrain like machines. One of them stopped. It turned toward the trench. Blake didn't move. The figure stared for a long moment, then turned away. After they passed, Blake crawled forward, hands frozen and legs shaking. Hours passed, he didn't know how many, until the sky dimmed even more. The storm finally began to fade. When he looked up, he saw the shape of his outpost in the far distance. His body collapsed. Just outside the base door, they found him half-conscious, his hands red and raw, and the cube frozen to his jacket. He didn't speak for a long time. Not until the medtech asked, "Where were you, Blake?" He whispered, "Someplace meant for me." Later that night, he sneaked back into the radio room. He powered up the satellite link and scanned the cube. At first, nothing happened. Then symbols appeared on the monitor. This time, he could read them. They had rearranged themselves into English. To Blake Morgan, Earthborn, you were the first of the last. Your body holds the design. Your mind holds the lock. What you choose to awaken will return. Blake blinked. He typed back, "Return what?" The cube flashed once, then displayed a string of numbers and symbols. He didn't understand any of it, except for one line at the bottom, buried beneath 67.43N, 118.92E, secure before they arrive. Coordinates. He entered them into the outpost's map. It was deep under the eyes, almost a kilometer down. No known structures, no bases, no heat signatures, just a place in the frozen silence. The cube pulsed again and opened like a puzzle box. Inside was a tiny black stone the size of a marble. It floated in the air, spinning slowly. The temperature in the room dropped. Lights flickered. Blake stepped back. "What are you?" he whispered. The cube responded with a different voice. One was female, soft and cold. "We gave your kind knowledge, and fear took it away." Blake stared at the cube. "You knew humans." "Yes, you were one of many, but your design was different. Blended. Blended with what? Time, code, flesh, memory. Blake didn't understand, but somehow he did. Somewhere deep in his bones, a feeling rose like waking up from a dream he never knew he had. He asked, "Why now?" The voice replied, "Because they've come to erase it." Blake looked at the map again. The coordinates were far, deep, dangerous. But he had to go. He couldn't explain why, but if he didn't, something terrible would happen. The next morning, he packed a rover and requested leave from his commander. "Why?" the man asked. "Personal reasons. You almost froze to death, and now you want to go out again." "I have to," his commander stared at him for a long time, then sighed. "Be back in 72 hours. If not, we'll assume you're dead." Blake didn't reply. He loaded the rover with gear and supplies and headed into the wild. The frozen world around him was silent and endless. The sky stretched grey and heavy above jagged peaks. The journey took nearly 6 hours. He parked near the marked coordinates and set up a portable drill. The machine bored into the ice for nearly 2 more hours before hitting something. Hard dot, not rock, dot not ice, dot metal, dot Blake cleared the frost with his gloved hands. It was a hatch, circular, smooth, no seams. He pressed the cube against it. The hatch opened, warm. Air spilled out, and strange lights danced along the tunnel walls. He stepped inside, leaving the storm behind. Down below, the walls were marked with carvings, human-like figures, stars, machines. A war in the center of the chamber was a long stone table, on it another cube, larger than the first, covered in ice, waiting. He placed a small cube next to it. The entire room lit up. A beam of light shot from the ceiling into his chest. He gasped as his vision blurred. Words filled his mind. Visions, cities beyond stars, humans traveling with beings of light, a machine buried on Earth before the fall of the First Empire. And then, silence. The larger cube spoke only once. "They are coming. This is your message." Blake fell to his knees, breathing hard. He knew what he had to do. He had to tell Earth, and he had to survive long enough to deliver the message. Asterisk. The Guardians arrived. Blake sat alone in the chamber, staring at the glowing cube in front of him. His hands shook, not from cold, but from something deeper. Fear, confusion, purpose. The message was clear. Now, he wasn't just someone who stumbled upon an alien ship. He was the key. The stone floor beneath him hummed quietly. The symbols on the walls pulsed slowly, like they were alive, watching, listening. The larger cube on the table kept flashing the same message. "They are coming. Prepare." He rose to his feet. He had to return to the outpost and warn anyone. This wasn't just about him anymore. Blake grabbed both cubes and turned toward the hatch. But something changed. A loud, echoing thud shook the tunnel, then another and another. He stopped. The hum in the walls turned sharp, like a warning. Outside, the storm had calmed. The sky above was cold and clear. He stepped out of the tunnel entrance and looked up. They had arrived. A ship black as coal, shaped like a jagged blade, hovered above the mountain ridge. It was massive, silent, and terrifying. No sound came from it. No signal, just presence. It hovered like a shadow stretched across the ice, and it wasn't alone. 3 smaller ships followed, forming a circle in the air. They descended slowly, gracefully, as if they had all the time in the world then. The first figures emerged. They weren't machines, but they didn't look fully alive either. Each one stood over 8 feet tall. Their bodies were wrapped in layers of silver-black armor. Their faces were hidden behind narrow helmets with a single glowing eye in the center. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The lead figure held up a device and scanned the ice. Then, it pointed directly at the entrance Blake had just stepped out of. Blake backed away slowly, trying to stay hidden behind a ridge of snow. The cube inside his jacket vibrated, not from fear, but from recognition. These beings were not just enemies. They were watchers, guardians. Their job was to find the message and destroy it before it reached the wrong hands. Blake wasn't sure if the wrong hands meant humans or someone else. He crept back into the tunnel. He had minutes at most. The deeper chamber lit up as soon as he returned. The cube was awake. "Blake Morgan," the voice said, "the Guardians have arrived. They are not your allies." "I know," he whispered. "You must protect the message. You are its carrier now. If it is destroyed, your species will never rise again." Blake looked around. "How do I protect it? I'm just one man." "Not anymore." The symbols along the wall changed. They formed into a strange circle. The air grew heavier, like pressure building in the room. Blake stepped toward the circle. A thin light beam shot up from the floor, scanning his entire body. Then, without warning, pain surged through his spine. He screamed. It felt like lightning crawling inside his veins. His mind blurred. His heartbeat grew louder in his ears. Then it all stopped, just as fast as it began. He collapsed to his knees. The cube's voice returned. "You are now marked. The signal can no longer be stolen. You carry it in your blood." Blake blinked. What does that mean? But the cube had gone silent again. Suddenly, a loud explosion shook the outer tunnel. The Guardians had reached the entrance. He could hear them now, heavy steps, sparks, and something else. A high-pitched hum that made the walls vibrate. Blake grabbed the cubes and ran into a hidden side corridor. The path was tight, barely enough space to move, but it led up maybe to another exit. He pushed forward, climbing higher, the sound of destruction echoing behind him. Rocks fell. Lights dimmed then. He reached a small hatch at the top. It opened into the open air. Blake crawled out and rolled into the snow. He turned around to see the main tunnel collapse as one of the alien crafts fired directly into the mountain. Smoke and ice shot into the sky. They were trying to bury the message forever, but he had it now. In him, he stumbled toward the rover he had parked hours ago. It was covered in snow, but still intact. He jumped in, powered it up, and pushed it to full speed. He didn't stop. He didn't look back as he raced across the frozen land. The sky behind him glowed red. Blake looked at the horizon. The message was still alive, and now they would all come for him. He was the key now. The galaxy knows Blake didn't know how long he had been driving. His fingers were stiff. His eyes burned. The rover's heater was failing, but he didn't stop. Not until the outpost's blinking tower lights appeared in the distance, piercing through the snowy grey. He was alive, barely, and inside him was something older and more dangerous than anything Earth had ever known. The moment he arrived, security rushed to meet him. "Blake, where the hell have you been? We thought you were dead." He tried to speak, but collapsed. They carried him inside, straight to medical. His suit was torn, skin frostbitten, and his pulse odd. The medtech stared at the scanner. "Something's off." "What do you mean?" "His blood. It's pulsing with something I can't identify. It's not natural." Blake heard them talking as if from underwater, But his thoughts were clear. Images flashed in his mind. Not dreams dash memories, dot worlds. Cities, ancient codes. It was all still inside him. The message later that night, Blake got up quietly. He walked through the quiet halls of the outpost and entered the comms room. He bypassed security. His mind knew how. Somehow, the knowledge was just there, like he had always known it. He activated the long-range broadcast system. The screen flickered, then stabilized. He didn't need a script. The words came naturally. My name is Blake Morgan. I'm a technician from Earth Outpost Vega 7. 3 days ago, I found something buried beneath the ice. A ship, a signal, a message written only for me. He paused. It said, Earth was not alone, that we were designed for more. And now, that message is inside me. I don't know why I was chosen, but I know this. They're coming to silence it, to bury it again. But I won't let them. He looked into the camera, voice steady. To every human listening across the stars, wake up. You were meant for more. The truth is buried deep, but it's rising. I've seen it. He hit send. The message was launched, not just to Earth, to every human colony, every listening station, every satellite still drifting in silence. The galaxy would hear. He turned off the console. A cold shiver crawled down his neck. He wasn't alone. Blake turned slowly. One of the Guardians stood in the room. No sound, no movement, just presence. Its eye pulsed red. You shouldn't be alive, it said. Blake stepped forward. And yet, here I am. You've broken the seal. I didn't. Break it, Blake said. I answered it. The Guardian raised its hand. A small weapon unfolded, glowing with blue fire. But the cube inside Blake's jacket lit up. A wave of force shot out. The Guardian was thrown back into the wall, spurking. Twitching, Blake stood tall, breathing heavy. The voice returned in his mind. The awakening has begun. Others will rise. You are the first, not the last. The next day, Earth responded. Not the government, not the military people. Thousands of messages flooded in, from Mars, from Europa, from the edge of the Orion colonies, each with the same question. We heard it too. What do we do now? Blake walked outside into the icy wind. The sky above was still, but in the far distance, lights danced on the horizon ships, descending dot. Earth ships, not to silence him, but to stand with him. The Guardians had failed. The message had survived. And now, the galaxy would remember the one thing they tried. To erase, humanity was built not to serve, but to rise.